Good morning. Welcome back to STEM It Yourself. We have another amazing speaker this morning. Today we have Dr. Arlyne Simon, and she is a patent inventor. So if you don't know what that is, you'll learn a little bit more about that as she gives her talk today. And she is a biomedical engineer and author of a children's book series called Abby Invents. And you can see that right behind her on the screen. She's recognized as a trailblazing female inventor by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Arlyne invented a blood test that detects when cancer patients reject bone marrow transplants. Her passion for healthcare has led her to design syringes, train clinical lab technologists in Kenya, help build supercomputers, and now design medical imaging equipment. As an author, Arlyne crafts stories about a girl inventor who creates things that do not exist, like unbreakable crayons and more. Eager to inspire more girls to become inventors, and you're inspiring me, by the way, Arlyne founded a multicultural children's products company called, is it Timouns?
Yes, Timouns, but I've renamed it to Abby Invents for it's easier.
So it's Abby Invents now.
Yeah.
Today, Abby Invents has reached more than 3,500 future inventors, and that'll be even larger after today. A native of Dominica, you have to tell us more about that. Arlyne now resides in Portland, Oregon. She holds a Ph.D. in macromolecular science and engineering from the University of Michigan and an undergraduate degree in chemical and biomolecular engineering from Georgia Tech. We are so excited to have you today with us, Dr. Simon. Would everyone please give her a big virtual welcome? And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, future inventors. Good morning. I am so excited to be here today. It's always a pleasure for me to talk to future inventors like yourself. So I'm going to start sharing my slides and tell you a little bit about my story, my journey to STEM. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to do some brainstorming activities so that you can come up with your own invention. And I am super excited to hear what you guys come up with. So let me share. Okay. I'm going to move my little window over there. Okay. So the title of my presentation is called—
1 second, Dr. Simon. We can see the Zoom screen on your screen.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. 1 second.
No worries. Okay.
Trying to figure out.
Do you have multiple monitors?
I do.
If you want to, what might be best is when you do share, just share your desktop, and then you can just, whatever is on your desktop, that's what we'll see. That might be easiest.
Okay.
And I only know because I have multiple monitors too, and I make a lot of times. If you stop sharing and then go back and share his desktop and then just put your presentation there, that might be helpful.
The only issue is the shared desktop screen has
millions of things on it.
Oh, I see. Stop share. Got it. Okay. Okay. Let's try this again.
Okay. No worries.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, we see the presentation now. Yes.
Perfection. Okay. Here we go. Let me just move this. Okay. So back to it. So the title of my talk here is called Underestimated. And the reason is, as people of color, kids of color, people usually categorize as underrepresented. But I really think they mean to say underestimated because they underestimate the brilliance that we bring to innovation. And so that's what I want you to remember today. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to imagine what an inventor looks like. I'm gonna see if I can keep my window open so I can see what you are saying, or maybe Dr. Grady can let me know. But so I'm gonna show you images of an inventor, and you're going to raise your hand in the chat and sort of let me know what you think, which picture you first saw, what you imagine as an inventor. Okay, so how many, when you see the word inventor, you imagine a guy with a laptop? And Dr. Grady, you can keep me in check to see how many people are raising their
I
hands.
will. You can either raise your hand or you can actually use the raise hand feature where it's right there where the reactions are, either one, or do a hand clap. So I see one, just one. Only one person thought of this? Okay, well, I thought of it too, so I make two.
Okay. How many of you imagine someone who looks like Albert Einstein with a lab coat,
Okay, I think I see two. Anybody else? And you can just, again, use, okay, I see three. Okay, three this time.
And how many of you picture a mad scientist, someone cuckoo just exploding things in a basement?
Yeah, I see one, two, three. Yeah, and I'm gonna make four on that one.
Okay.
Just yeah.
But how many of you picture yourself as an inventor?
I see one, two, three.
Okay, that's
Three.
good.
Okay.
That's good. When I was your age, I can guarantee you that's not something I ever thought that I would be an inventor. But here I am today to talk to you about my journey to innovation. So that's good that you have all this confidence that you're already thinking of yourself as inventors. That's great. So I'm going to introduce you to a few famous inventors. Do any of you know the story of how the potato chip got invented? Anybody?
They're saying no.
Okay. Well, it's a pretty funny story. So legend has it that there was a chef named George Crumb in 1853, and he had a very troublesome customer. So the customer ordered potato French fries, and George Crumb, he brought the French fries to the customer, but then the customer started complaining that the French fries were too thick. And so out of revenge, he went back into the kitchen. He got a fresh batch of potatoes and he sliced them really, really, really thin. And he put some seasoning and some salt and he brought it to the customer. And to his surprise, the customer loved it. And that is how the potato chip got invented. Now, how many of you have played with the Super Soaker? Anybody?
Everybody has their hands up here.
Well, I hope you know who invented it. It was invented by Lonnie Johnson, an aerospace engineer. He worked at NASA. Now I'm going to introduce you to an inventor that perhaps you don't know, Kiana Cave. So in 2010, there was this horrible oil spill in Louisiana. And 5 years later, Kiana Cave, she was now 15, she had this idea, looking at the oil spill, that she was pretty sure that these oil spills were responsible for more than just, pollution. And what she learned was that when the UV rays of the sun interacted with the oil and water mixture in the ocean surface, it was actually creating these chemicals. And these chemicals were causing cancer. So Kiana started working in a lab at Tulane University. And she was able to invent a molecule that detects the toxins that are formed during oil spills. And because of that, major oil companies are now changing the way they think about these oil spills, and they're changing the way that they respond to oil spills because now we know that they cause cancer. So that just goes to show you that inventors come, throughout many centuries at different ages, and there are many, many inventors out there who look just like us. Now, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Dominica, and Dominica is a very tiny island in the Caribbean. If you go to Google Maps and you try to find it, you have to zoom, zoom, zoom a lot, and it most likely will be under the arrow. So Dominica only has about 70,000 people. And so this is an image here of me with my best friends in high school. We all grew up to be STEM professionals. So as you heard from Dr. Grady, I'm a biomedical engineer and also a patent inventor. And all the friends in these images, they grew up to be nurses and accountants and medical doctors, software engineers. We all sort of ended up in the STEM field, and we all came from that tiny island. My journey to science was because I really, really, really loved caterpillars. I was obsessed with caterpillars. I liked the fact that, you know, they're so colorful and they nibble on these leaves. And then after a couple weeks, if you feed them with water and leaves and you clean out their poop in the jar, they turn into butterflies. But sometimes I would get stuck with a moth because this really colorful caterpillar used to puzzle me, like such a pretty caterpillar. It would turn into a moth. This is like the frangipani caterpillar. And so I had to learn which types of caterpillars became pretty butterflies. And sometimes the prettiest caterpillar doesn't become a pretty butterfly, it becomes a moth. So I grew up in Dominica, and in Dominica, as I mentioned, you know, I love science. And then I moved to the United States when I was 17. But the move came because my dad, he's a very staunch supporter of STEM education. He's a civil engineer himself. And so he felt that for me to, you know, expand my knowledge and grow technically, that it was best to move to the United States. So I started off at Georgia State University, and I actually started as a chemistry major. What happened was one day a chemical engineer was talking in my chemical engineering club, and he made his career sound really, really, really amazing. So I immediately moved from Georgia State University to Georgia Tech to major in chemical and biomolecular engineering. And after my bachelor's degree at Georgia Tech, I then moved to University of Michigan to do a PhD in macromolecular science and engineering. But because that term is so long and most people don't really know what that is, I usually just say I'm a biomedical engineer because my research has always been in biomedical engineering. Now, biomedical engineering is the study of biology and engineering. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to create new healthcare technologies. So over the years, my career has been amazing. Amazing, honestly, is an understatement. I have invented blood tests, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I have designed the syringes. I have designed supercomputers. I have traveled to Kenya to teach lab technologists how to be safe as they're taking care of patients with HIV. I have created new medical devices. It's just phenomenal. And if anything, I want you to take away from today is like biomedical engineering is cool, particularly if you want to use um, your life's work to to help people who have sick lives, to help sick people feel better. And that is ultimately what my career has always been about. Now, I should say, you know, you can stop me if you have any questions. I forgot to mention that earlier. Um, so does anybody have any questions so far?
I think they're all just intrigued at this point, so keep going.
Okay. Okay. What I do today with my biomedical engineering expertise is I help design medical imaging equipment like ultrasounds and x-rays and MRIs and CAT scans. Now, as you can see from this image, it's an image of an ultrasound with a baby in a mom's womb. Now, all of you were babies at some point. So chances are when your mom went to the hospital, the very, very first image your mom ever saw of you was from an ultrasound. And what happened is the doctor rubs this transducer on your mom's belly after rubbing a gel, and then it causes sound waves. The sound waves are emitting, and the sound waves are able to, because of the thickness of the different thickness in your tissue, the sound waves are able to help translate into electrical signals, and that we then translate into images as you see on the screen. And so in my job, I don't design the physical ultrasound, but what I do is I work with ultrasound manufacturers and I understand the biology and the physics behind the equipment. And I help give recommendations for them as to what sort of processing technology they need to use to have really high resolution images, help them decide, okay, well, you know, when the mom is in the hospital, There's going to be multiple screens. The technologist is going to have a screen next to her while the technologist is doing all these measurements, like, how long is the baby? Is the baby a girl? Is it a boy? Um, is there any defects in the baby? Is the baby growing properly? And the mom who's laying on the bed, she wants to see what you look like too. So there are going to be two screens in this room. And because of this, you have to make sure there's no lagging. I'm sure many of you are watching like YouTube videos these days, and you may get really upset if you're trying to watch this video and there's like a lag, or if you're watching Netflix, you want to just see the video right away. And with ultrasound, it's all about real-time imaging. And so that's what I help make sure happens with high resolution. And of course, with X-rays, if you've broken any bones, the doctor want to make sure that he or she can really figure out exactly or pinpoint exactly where the bones were broken, so they can now offer the best treatment for you. And so that's what I helped do. My superpower is helping doctors see inside the body. Now, a little bit about my invention. So this invention was done while I was a graduate student at University of Michigan. I knew absolutely nothing about bone marrow transplant rejection when I started. I didn't know anything about creating new microfluidic devices. I was in my 20s, and I was just curious and very eager to learn. And what I did love was polymer science, because I always had a passion for chemistry. I really, really wanted to create something that helps people. I care about people, and I don't like when people are feeling sick. And so what we learned was, in real life, when patients get cancer and they get chemotherapy, the chemotherapy is intended to make them feel better. But how chemotherapy works is it destroys all the cells in the body that are growing really fast. So that's why people who have cancer, their hair starts falling off, because our hair cells are one of the cells in the body that grows really, really fast. And chemotherapy drugs destroy those cells. So after a patient gets chemotherapy, and these cells are being destroyed, not just the cancer cells, but some healthy cells, then the doctor may recommend that the patient goes back to the hospital and get what is called a bone marrow transplant. And that's usually when you see people saying, hey, can you donate bone marrow to help my friend in the hospital? And the purpose of that is because you and I are healthy. And so by donating our bone marrow to the patient, we're giving them new healthy cells to help fight out the cancer. But the challenge is sometimes my bone marrow may reject your body, and vice versa, right? And so because of that rejection, the patient is now going to develop a different kind of disease. And I just felt like, that's so much, a cancer patient gets chemo, then they get a bone marrow transplant, and now they get like another disease. Like, there has to be something we can do to help them. And so that's when, with my PhD advisor and a few other researchers, we came up with this idea of creating a test that detects when cancer patients are rejecting that bone marrow transplant. And so how it works is, on the chip, what we'll have is, you can see this is really cool. It's one of the best videos I ever took. It's rehydrating droplets. And so what we thought was, on the test, in the first droplet, we'd have all these proteins that bind to different proteins in the patient blood. And if the patient is rejecting the bone marrow transplant, then those protein levels are really, really high. And this larger droplet would be what we mix the patient blood with. So what the physician would do is he would squirt the large droplet with the patient blood plasma. And then when it's squirted, it's, interacting with the smaller droplet with what's actually detecting the rejection. And under the microscope, it looks like, very lighted or fluorescent signals. And if it's really, really bright, we know that there's a lot of those proteins. If it's fainter, we know it's less, and we're able to do the math to kind of figure this out. And so because this was new, I ended up getting 2 patents. Now, patents are documents that the United States government issues to inventors when you've created something completely new. And what I wanted to highlight from this patent images is, when I filed the patent, it was in 2011. When it was actually issued was 2016. And that shows you that there were 5 years when I didn't even know if the patent office thought this was an invention or not. And so this shows you that science takes time. When you're watching movies and they're talking about scientists, they show you that the science is, invented or developed in 2 hours because you're only watching the movie for 2 hours. But in real life, what you see as 2 hours on the television screen, maybe like 5 to 10 years. And so that's something that you have to think about when you're comparing yourself to whoever you think is famous or whoever you think is doing great work. That person took a lot of years before they got to where they are. But the important thing is they started. And so you have to start too. Does anybody have any questions? Come on, you guys must have some questions for me.
Not yet. It's coming though. This is amazing. So they're digesting.
Okay. Well, we're going to be participating a lot soon.
Okay.
So one of the things about my story is I decided not to just be one thing when I grew up. Many times in your class, your teacher may say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And they want you to choose one thing, but you can actually be many things at the same time when you grow up. So I write a children's book series called Abby Invents to encourage more girls and more boys to become inventors and to see themselves as inventors at their young age. And the title of the series is Abby Invents. So far, we'll talk about Abby in a little bit, but so far, Abby has invented the world's first unbreakable crayons. And just like me, her experiments failed a million times, but she got a patent at the end. And most recently, she and her cousin Miko invented the FoldyBot, which is the world's first at-home folding machine. I'm also an inventor, as I said, and I'm a biomedical engineer. So yeah, you can be many things at the same time when you go up. And the great thing is you're able to use your passion or your creativity from one career path and merge it into the other. It's because I am always curious as a biomedical engineer why I'm able to maintain my childlike curiosity. And it's because I became an inventor that now I can write stories about a little girl who's an inventor too. But I am not the only person who is a multi-dreamer, right? So I want to introduce you to Brandon Torrey. He works at Google by day, but by night, he's a rapper. Then we have Kelvin Doe. He's from Sierra Leone. He was 13-year-old when he became an inventor. He created his own radio station by collecting all these different scrap metals, old generators, old batteries, and he created his own radio station. And then we have Elisa Chavez. When she was about 14, she was participating in a science fair. And she had this idea because her mom was a babysitter. She was hearing stories from her mom that sometimes parents would forget their kids in the car. So her science fair project at the age 14 was thinking about a way to help alert parents when they've forgotten their babies in the car. And so she called it the hot seat. Well, after a few years of tinkering and thinking of her idea, sort of massaging her idea, she made it a reality with the hot seat. And how it works is there will be like this pillow with some sensors that's placed on the seat where the baby is. And if a parent forgets their baby in the car, then the sensor is linked to the alarm on the mom's keys. And the mom or the dad know that, oops, I forgot my baby. And that's Elisa's invention. So again, just showing you that you can be an inventor at any age. I hope you guys want to be inventors too. Now, you may think, that life was perfect, nothing bad happened, but everybody fails at some point in their life. And these are some of my favorite failures. I have failed exams. And when I was applying to college, there were many colleges that I got rejected from. But why I consider it to be my favorite failure is even if I got rejected so many times by colleges, I ended up at really good universities. So it was okay that they rejected me because I still went on to the best colleges. There were some scholarships or fellowships I applied for at different times in my life. And I felt really, really sad when I thought my essays were great, but then I got rejected. And even that invention I told you about, it failed for consistently for about 3 years before finally something started working. But once it started working and I was able to get patents from it, it wasn't that big of a failure after all. In fact, you learn from every failed experiment and you make your invention better. And that book series, Abby Invents, when I sent it out to publishers, they all rejected it. But I didn't let that stop me from publishing my book anyway. So I did, and now it's inspired, thousands of future inventors. So you may fail, but you are not a failure. And that's what I want you to remember today. Do any of you have times in your lives where you have failed? Maybe you failed a test or you tried something with sports and you failed.
So I think the only one who might be able to answer today is because Joanna has microphone issues and Morgan is driving through an area where she can't hear that well. But Jasmine, do you mind sharing?
Well, I feel like many of things. It's like during this time of the year, like we doing virtually, and at the time I failed a test, and I told myself I had to think. I said I would go back to school, but I had to sort out the pros and cons because there's still a virus out there, and I have an education to learn, and it's hard to do virtual. But I said I have to go back to school because virtual is very hard. Virtual is very hard to do because you have to go to this school and then probably your classes at the same time, because I had to get to another class at the same time while I was in math. And I told my math teacher that I'm coming back to school, and I convinced my mama to let me go back to school for full time.
Wow, I am impressed with how you thought through all of this and to come up with the idea that, you really need an education. Yeah, I commend you for powering through with virtual school. I know that must be very, very difficult,
Thank
but
you.
you are very persistent and I'm sure you're going to do great things. So I'm really proud to hear how you thought through convincing your mom to help you go back to full-time school. I hope that's better.
And I was going to say, Joanna, if you can type in the chat what might be or have been something you think you might have failed at. And Morgan, I don't know if your sound is better, but if it is, if you could come off mute and just share a time where maybe you thought you failed. But if not, anybody else? Grace, I don't know if you want to participate too. Okay, Grace.
I got something. So I have two failures that are really big. So so I went to a boarding school, the School of Science and Math. We have to apply like a college, and I was rejected at first. They said, "No way, Jose," and it hurt really bad because I like did everything right in my mind. I took my SATs, I got really good scores. I did all the extracurriculars, I was prepared. But then they said no, but then I appealed and was on the wait list, and I got a call, and I was like, "Hey, now I'm here." And then I'm a senior now, so the college process, I applied to a few schools early, and I was rejected by my number one, Stanford. But then I got accepted into Yale. So like it hurt, but then like I ended up working out. So, and I feel like I'm going to where I belong. It's all part of
Excellent.
God's plan, and yeah. So those are my
Love it.
biggest failures.
Congratulations on getting into Yale. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And Joanna shared in the chat that she has failed some tests before as well. And Morgan is now raising her hand. So are you back with us, Morgan?
I can hear now. So
yay.
One time I thought I failed was when I thought I failed my CFA, but it turns out I actually passed it because I did not know some of the curricular on the test. So I actually got a good score instead of failing.
Yeah, that's great. Love it. Yeah, things always work out in the end, and failures just help us, build up that persistent factor, which we need if we want to really succeed in life. not just for STEM fields, but generally. So that's good. Now we're gonna move to the second part of my presentation here, which I'm calling Inventing 101. So based on everything I've taught you so far, which of these statements are true? How many of you think inventors work alone? If you do, put one in the chat. Anybody?
Yeah, so far we have one. Well, no, wait a minute. Okay. So Latasha and Jasmine say inventors work alone.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's not correct at all times. Most inventors work in teams. And so there's a myth that inventors work alone because usually when we see images of inventors in media or in books, there's an image of just a lone inventor. But what happens even for my invention is even if my background was in biomedical engineering, I had to work with a cancer researcher to understand how cancer is developed and how what has been done in the field with bone marrow transplant rejection. And I had to work with mechanical engineers to help me understand the physics behind, how the molecules are detecting and how they're able to emit fluorescent or luminescent signals, basically how they emit the lights. And yeah, when you look at most of the patents in the patent office, you will be amazed to see that there are multiple inventors listed on a patent, because the beautiful thing about invention is brainstorming is necessary and you bring skills from different fields to help you come up with something truly amazing. So number 2, how many people think, well, I guess I sort of answered that question. Inventors work in teams is true. You can put the number 2 in the chat if you think this statement is true.
Everyone's putting 2.
Yay, perfect. Okay, third statement, you have to be an expert to become an inventor. If you think that's true, put number 3. Okay.
I don't see any 3s in the chat.
That's great. Yep, you do not have to be an expert to become an inventor, because remember all the examples I've given you of child inventors or kid inventors who've gone on to do great things. And sometimes being young as an inventor works beautifully because you're able to ask questions that experts never think about, because experts are so focused or so trained in their way of thought that it's hard for them. They're blinded. They have blind spots. It's hard for them sometimes to think out of the box, which is why your voice is so important in invention. Number 4, you must build a prototype before you file a patent. If you think that's true, put number 4.
Okay, I see a couple 4s in the chat so far. Yes,
Okay.
4. I see 4 number 4s right now.
Okay, so number 4 is actually incorrect. You can file a patent with an idea and the drawing of your prototype before building your prototype. And the importance of that is, particularly in the United States, the person who becomes the inventor is the first person to file the patent, not the first person to build the prototype or to not the first person to actually invent the prototype. So you're able to file a patent first based on your understanding of the science. Maybe you speak to 1 or 2 experts, you do some literature search or some research on Google to see if there are other ideas, your idea has already been patented, and you draw it out, what your invention is going to look like, and you work with a lawyer where they are able to do additional research to see if your idea is truly novel. And so, yes, you can file a patent before you build. Okay, number 5. You must be 18 years old or older to become an inventor. If you think that's true, put number 5. Okay, I don't see anybody putting anything in. Is that correct?
That's correct. No one thinks.
Okay. That is correct then. It is false. Because as you saw, you can be as young as 13, younger, you can be 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. You can, at any age, you can become an inventor. Okay, so now we're going to move to inventing 102. I'm going to introduce you a little bit more to Abby. So in Abby Invents the Foldy Bot, Abby identifies a problem. You know, her mom is, in her mind, Abby says, Mom, you know, there are washing machines and dryers. There must be folding machines too, said Abby. And so Abby comes home from school and she sees her mom with this gigantic pile of laundry. And, you know, her mom is taking forever to fold these clothes. So in Abby's mind, you know, why are there no folding machines? So her mom challenges Abby to invent it. And what I want you to see here is that Abby has identified a problem to solve. Can there be a machine that exists that helps mom fold clothes automatically, just like there are machines that help her wash laundry automatically and dry clothes automatically? The next step in the process is folding. So can we have a machine to do that? Now, when you have an idea or a problem that you've identified to solve, it's important that you ask questions. And so this is Abby interviewing or talking to people in her neighborhood. You know, if she really wants to make a folding machine, she wants to understand what people think a folding machine should do. That way, when she designs it, she's able to actually make a machine that meets the needs of customers or other people. So she asks, you know, what do you think a folding machine should do? And photographer Pat says, well, like fold clothes, obviously. Banka Berry says, well, it must fit in the laundry room. The chef says, you know, the perfect machine says ding when it is fin, you know, similar to how your microwave tells you that it's done microwaving your food, or your toaster, when your toast is done, it pops up and it makes a noise, so you know that your toast is ready. And then musician Marcello, he said it should have uno, dos, tres buttons. It should be very simple to use, not complicated with lots and lots of buttons. Just as how smartphones have one button, we want to make devices which are simple for customers to use. And the third step of your invention or your inventing process is to draw it out. So you draw it. You know, what Abby learns after lots of research with her cousin Miko is maybe the 3 buttons that we need would be size, speed, and start. Size, because, you know, mom could have a small pile of clothes today, a very big pile of clothes tomorrow. Maybe she's busy and she wants to go somewhere right quick, but she wants her clothes folded. So maybe she can fold her clothes really fast, or it can take its time like a slow cooker and fold really slow. And there has to be a start button because you need to start the machine. And the rod was Abby's idea of how the clothes is going to fold, that maybe the clothes like rolls around a rod, and the rod, I'm not going through all the details here, but the rod sort of retracts, just as how you have a pen. So what I'm showing on the screen is a pen. So in Abby's idea, and through the story, she gets ideas from items around the house, and her idea is from a pen. You know, just as a clicky pen, you press the button, you know, the rod comes in, and you press it again, the rod comes out. Abby's idea is to get ideas from a pen and have a button somewhere in the machine that allows the rod to come out, and the clothes rolls around the rod. Then the rod goes in and the clothes fall to the bottom of the machine. Now, at that point, you can file a patent. But there may be some holes in your thought because you haven't, you know, described why you think this idea would work. And so that's where research is really important. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay.
I like Abby.
Thank
She
you.
wants to make life more simple. I like that.
Now, inventing 103. Before you file a patent, there are certain criteria that your patent has to meet. There are 3 things. one question that you have to ask yourself is your invention, in this case, the FoleyBot, is it the first of its kind? As in, has this idea ever been created before? If the answer is yes, that's great. I mean, sorry, if the answer is no, it's great. So is the FoleyBot the first of its kind? Yes, so we're good. Is it useful? As in, do people want to use your device? Is it solving a real problem? In this case, yes, because, you know, people want to fold their clothes automatically. Now, the last question is a little bit of a tricky question. Is it easy to guess how you made it? As in, you know, is somebody going to just know, you know, what I just showed you about this pen? Like, is somebody else besides Abby going to think about getting an idea from a pen and how a pen like clicks to make this FoleyBot? Probably not. And if they did, maybe they haven't filed it yet. So no, in this case, in the book, there's like other things that Abby has included, like a secret trapdoor, so that her mom sort of feeds the clothes in through something that looks like a funnel. And then each clothes like goes through one at a time, and it rolls over the rod. So no, they have a secret trapdoor, and plus they have that rod that sort of goes in and out. So because Abby and Miko's invention meet these three criteria, then what can they do next? They can patent it. Now, what you learned from my invention story is when you file a patent, it may take years before that patent gets issued. But Abby and Miko can file the patent, and you know, however many years it takes, eventually they will get a patent to Abby and Miko for the FoleyBot that allows for the next 20 years, where this patent gives them the right to make, to use, and sell the FoleyBot in this country. Now, if Abby and Miko want to sell their FoleyBots in France, that patent doesn't apply anymore. They can still sell their FoleyBot. They don't have a patent. And so they would have to file, you have to file a patent for every country or every region where you want to enforce your invention. Okay, so now they filed their patent, they can build and they can test. And so they've built their FoleyBot. You know, it has the size where it can fit in the laundry room, just like the requirement was. It has 3 buttons, you know, start, speed, and what's the next one? Okay, I forgot. Start, speed, and size. And, you know, it meets all the requirements that customers have. It folds the clothes. And so it works. You know, they think about how they're going to name their invention. So think about all these steps. You have to name your invention. Should they call it the folding machine, the folding robot? So they call it the FoleyBot. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. So what we're going to do now is brainstorm some problems to solve within your school, your neighborhood, the world, problems that you think problems you think that need solving. It may be how you think about these problems, maybe something that, you know, you hear your parents complaining about all the time. You know, especially now with this pandemic, life is very hard and life is really busy. So there are lots and lots of problems that need solving right now. So that's one way you can think of problems. There may be problems in your life, particularly, you know, somebody mentioned how challenging virtual school is. Is there a way that you can make virtual school better or easier? These are how you think of the problems that you want to solve. Or maybe you remember a time where you were playing a game with your friend outside, and you know, you had an idea of how to make that game easier, or how to make that game more inclusive. You know, particularly if you have friends who have disabilities, can they join in on the fun as well? So I'm gonna give you, let's say, 1 minute, power minute, and just think about problems that you want to solve. And when you think about the problem, you can type it in the chat or you can raise your hand and Dr. Grady will call you. I hope your brain cells are tingling. And if you have any challenges where you know you can't think of a problem, you can also say that in the chat as well, and we can walk through it together.
I think Jasmine has something.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jasmine.
She has her hand up. Okay.
God. I want to solve head trauma,
Mm,
like raise awareness, the CTE with sports, with sports and with sports administration, because I want to help stop more of like getting like more families getting destroyed by this illness that cannot be solved or fixed, because you know it's a long shot, but you know it needs a like something like to either slow down the process, or
mhm,
either like either like either do like a rearranging the headgear, or let's
mm.
say for example we can make medicine just like to slow down the process, or like cure it as full, but you know, or perform surgery, which that's a little risky, but it can sort of help if it do.
I really like this problem that you've identified. The wonderful thing about that problem, although problems, particularly this case, is a very concerning problem to solve, is you, by brainstorming, you've identified multiple areas that need solving in that space. You mentioned one with the headgear. So it could be creating headgears which are more durable. That way, when players are playing, or kids are riding bikes or something, that headgear is more durable and prevents head trauma. Then you mentioned another, which I liked about the process of the way you're thinking, is because you're first identifying a problem at the source when somebody gets the head trauma, which is an accident or playing. And so you're trying to solve a problem to prevent the head trauma from happening in the first place. And then you're also thinking, okay, see, I can't do that, but the head trauma has occurred. How can I help the patient who has the head trauma? Can I make their life easier by finding a treatment that helps it not be so severe? Or can I slow down how quickly their brain is, going to get destroyed or impacted? And so that's great because you're looking at both the detection and when it happens, can there be a way of treatment? Beautiful.
And
Love it.
that's they said, I was researching it, like I have a flash drive on it,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that like the brain is they give it a cause by death when they look into the brain, because they compare the brain to a healthy 27-year-old. Let's say,
Mm-hmm.
for example, got head trauma. They
Mm-hmm.
compare the 27-year-old healthy brain, and then
Mm-hmm.
they compare a rotten brain like from a 45-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and then they compare the person that has disease from it, and
Mm-hmm.
they look at it and they say it's rotten, because like the 27-year-old has a brain of a healthy person, but a 45-year-old that's dying from Alzheimer's have a rotten brain. It's just like Alzheimer's, but it's pronounced when you die.
Yep. I completely understand where you're going from. That's really impressive that you're doing all this research so far. I commend you for that. I will not be surprised if in a few years I see your name next to inventor for helping, create a technology that solves a problem in that head trauma space. So good luck. Who's next?
Joanna, if you have something you can type in the chat. Morgan, do you have anything?
I that, but I wanted to say to fix like the messed up healthcare system, because it is very unfair.
Do you want to expand a little bit? Is there some issue that you've experienced or someone has experienced? That way we can sort of narrow down the problem to solve.
Well, people, they're like, it's like with Medicaid, I'm pretty sure that's what it
Mhm,
is. But
mhm.
like it's very unfair based on like who you are and your race sometimes. So
I see. So is the problem that because of low income households, they may have to get insurance like Medicaid, and your concern is they're not getting the best healthcare because of their low income. Is that is that the
Yes.
problem? Okay. Yes, that is a problem that many people are familiar with. So let's think a little bit about how to solve it. Is the problem that we want to create well, maybe the solution is like we want to create programs that, I don't know, maybe they're state funded or somewhat funded, that allows that sort of provides additional funds to help provide better care for patients who are in that low income bracket. That may be one way of solving it. Can you think of other ways to solve it, perhaps?
Well, I like what you said about like a foundation
Mhm.
that helps people who don't get the right medical care. So I think the foundation would be best.
Super. Okay. Okay, we're getting there. Anybody else?
And do you have something, Grace? Joanna hasn't typed hers yet in chat. It might be kind of long since her mic is not working, but I don't know, Grace, if you had anything. But if you don't, I think that's all the young ladies that are here. But I welcome some of the team, the NCCU team. If you have something, you're part of this too.
I mean, I was thinking, I know especially there was this kind of technology for football players when they get hit, like to kind of measure how hard the hit was and if they would get a concussion from it. And I thought, what if there was some kind of helmet or something, some device inside the helmet that would really gauge how hard the hit was, maybe measure it based on impact, and just to let the person who's like trying to take care of the player like know what they need to do first, like steps based on how severe the hit was. Like if they might not have a concussion or some kind of thing, then maybe check other body parts or something like that. But if they feel like if the device measured that the hit was like really, really severe, then just go straight for trying to figure out if we need to call 911, get them out, just, I don't know. That's just the first thing I thought of, but I don't really know anything else.
I really like that idea because especially now in the age of connected devices and Internet of Things, collecting the data from the hit would be great for advancing research in that space, because then you can, like you said, compare the impact of the hit and then correlate that data to the patient outcome or how the patient is in the hospital. And yeah, that would be a great start and at helping solve some of the problems that the other future inventor, I think her name was Jasmine, also mentioned. So that's great. You guys could be collaborators. Anybody else? Okay, this was a great discussion. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit with our future inventor pledge. It's something that Abby says during her invention process. For me, when things get really hard or troublesome in research or in life or even in the past in school, what helped me was always, affirmations, whether they're biblical verses, like I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or, I'm a problem solver, like speaking to yourself sort of, amps you up and builds up that confidence. So you guys can say this out loud, or you can say it in your head. But essentially, Abby's future inventor pledge is: I am a problem solver. I am an inventor. I solve problems big and small because I have great ideas. And all the ideas we had today were brilliant. And I really hope that you continue thinking about your ideas, massaging them, and, just tinkering, drawing it out. And who knows, one day you may be able to solve all the problems that we identified on the call today. So with that, I thank you all for joining this session this morning.